In Portsmouth Historic Dockyard, HMS Victory is being reborn. That's the story we have to tell. The latest stage in a huge project by the National Museum of the Royal Navy to secure the future of one of the world's most iconic warships, HMS Victory. Flagship of Lord Nelson, victor of the Battle of Trafalgar, and the heroine of our story. Which comes round to this: a block of wood that's made history. So what's it taking to see that HMS Victory is berthing safely? Well, first, you need a safe berth. And here, doubly safe, because the dock in which the great ship sits is also of major historic importance. But it still needs patching up.
Today we're seeing stone being lifted into the dry dock where HMS Victory lies. This is really exciting for us because it means we can get going on doing the repairs to the dock, all in preparation for the installation of the support system in a couple of months' time.
Over time, the stone, which is a Purbeck stone, has been damaged by the weather. So obviously you get water into cracks. As the water freezes, it cracks the stone basically. So we're here to repair those defects in the stone.
Stonework and ironwork too. That has to be authentic. And what could be more authentic than this for an 18th century ship?
It helps to stress the material so it gives a little bit more in keeping with it being a bit older looking. So that's what we're doing now, warming it up until we can just sort of flare the edges out, put a few marks in it, make it look a little bit older.
Stone and ironwork alike, important though they are simply the opening for the main event. The installation of 134 supports that will carry the weight of the great ship into the future. July of 2017 sees the first being installed, ready to go live after extensive prototype testing. A major milestone for the team at the National Museum of the Royal Navy.
This is an exciting moment for us. This is day one of the mobilisation of the project, if you like. So this is our first prop in the bottom of the dock. Victory's really, in many ways, quite comfortable on this old system. She's sagged around it, she's moved around it. And so for us to come in and move from 22 cradle supports to 134 point supports, that is a challenge, and we obviously do not wish to damage the ship. So the order of the day is very much slow and steady. So the process is we install a half dozen props in one area, we load them up, we then have to balance that on the other side of the ship, and then when we have all the props around one of the old supports, when they're all installed, we'll load everything up to between 15 and 20 tons to make sure we've taken the load off the existing cradle, and then we've got to remove the timber capping from that existing cradle. At every point, we have to pause and wait.
What won't wait, if the rolling program is to keep rolling, is the fabrication of the new supports. ML UK of Portsmouth are in charge of this, creating the scores of identical props that will berth HMS Victory safely. ML's Portsmouth store is a treasure trove of gleaming precision engineering.
There's a huge amount of work on one of these sections. We've got a Fosse bronze nut here, which is machined from a single billet. On an Archimedes screw, it's quite a coarse square screw just to take the load, because these props have got to take 25 tonne as a maximum load. So yeah, it's all heavy industrial stuff.
The dry dock, in which HMS Victory has made her home since 1922, is itself listed. It's the oldest in the world. which means conservation experts from historic England must also be involved in the project.
I've already been here so far advising on repairs to the stonework. They've been done excellently, so things like trying to replicate the original tool marks and the tool finishes on the front of the stone. So the next phase for us really is in particular what happens when the big props come out and what condition the stonework is in underneath and how much intervention is required to that. But what we can see so far is a really exciting and interesting project, and the great thing about the new props is that they're entirely reversible, so the way that they're being put in with a sort of a plastic and grout system means that there's no impact to the original stonework of the dry dock, which is a really great way to proceed. So yeah, really delighted with how things are progressing and really excited to be involved in the project too.
The story of HMS Victory is of course all about wood. While surveys show her heart of oak is very strong, some of her wood will need replacing. Here at Whitney Sawmills in the Wye Valley, to help make good the ravages of time on the ship, wood from an Aberdeenshire estate is being seasoned, some of it the increasingly rare elm.
The main property of elm is that if it's permanently submerged underwater, it lasts an incredibly long time. If it's out in the open air, it doesn't last very long. It succumbs to various fungi and rots. But when it's totally immersed, it lasts an extremely long time. So, for example, the keel of HMS Victory is entirely elm, and to a great extent it's still in reasonable good condition.
A new year, and the pace is hotting up. More and more of the new supports are being delivered and put into place. Meanwhile, internal repairs are also going ahead.
Here's another example of a structural repair that we had to do before we were able to start the support system. This is called a beam end chock, and it supports the cross beam, and it's the major structural element that keeps the beam and the sides together. So here's the inner planking, and you can see a nice new beam here that fixes it all in place.
And that's oak again, yes?
This is oak. It's oak laminate made of strips of 15mm oak strip, all nicely bonded together, giving a nice strong cross grain structure to it.
Time for a team photo, with new members arriving to take up the baton on this 22-year project. A year of exhaustive effort follows, as the ship's hull is checked and rechecked, tested and retested, to see how she's adapting to the new supports, with the old system still, for now, in place. Much of that is done with pinpoint laser work. Still, final testing also requires good old-fashioned hand measurement, but it must be just as precise.
We're going to be looking at it every 5 minutes for the first hour, then every 3 hours.
And it's going to tell you how the ship is reacting to the block speed?
The block speed, yes, as well as our laser scan. We're going to use it in conjunction. So,
pretty continuous process then of actually checking and monitoring.
24-hour monitoring. So it's a lot of data and a lot of man hours going into making sure the hull remains stable. And if it goes beyond 25mm, then we'll get the wedges and knock wooden blocks back in between the steel and the hull.
Definitely not a job for shortcuts.
No, definitely not.
And this is where we came in, because now, bit by bit, the first of the wooden blocks between the underside of Victory's hull and her steel cradles is to be cut out. It takes hours of patient work. Drilling and cutting, cutting and drilling, to free the first part of this unassuming but historic piece of wood. For the first time, she will rest fully on a new support. It's a moment of truth, but quiet confidence is the order of the day.
It's taken us a long time. This has been, we're getting into almost the 7th year of understanding Victory and making sure that the approach is right. So when you look at all the modelling we did, all the structure analysis, the testing of these props, the testing of the load monitoring system, the practicing for how we were actually going to do this, we have been very, very cautious. So I think when you look at the evidence and the problems we've got in the ship, a large number of them are down to the fact that she's been supported in this way for nearly a century. This is absolutely the right thing to be doing. Yes, we still have our nervous moments when you look at the actual process of doing it, because for all the complex modelling and analysis, there are times when this is boiling down to with a sledgehammer knocking a piece of wood out, which is pretty much how it would have been done 250 years ago, let alone 100 years ago.
At last, the hours of work bear fruit. The first wooden block beneath the hull is coming out. But that's not the last of the moments of truth. Now, work must start to remove the cradles themselves. That can best be done by hot work, advanced plasma cutting, to remove the giant steel supports one by one. Precaution has been piled on precaution to deliver safety.
We've tented, we've compartmentalised, so we're making sure that there's plenty of barriers between the cutting and the ship. So you can see we've got fire blankets in place, we've got misting, we've got fire watches on board the ship and off board the ship, so we've plenty of precautions in place. Unfortunately, they do tend to make it a little bit difficult to see what's going on.
And here it comes. The first of the cradles to be cut away is lifted out, section by section. Now there's no turning back for the National Museum of the Royal Navy and the dedicated Victory team. This night, and night after night, using the dark hours so visitors can still come on board during the day, the work goes on removing Victory's old cradles and installing the new supports, until Britain's greatest warship is safely berthed.